NFL 2025 team previews. We're moving right along here. We got the Jacksonville Jaguars. A lot to discuss with this team. Could go a couple different directions, so let's see where we end up with this one. Now, any team coming off a 4-win season is going to have some changeover. So, new GM James Gladstone, youngest GM in the league, former Rams scouting director, whole new coaching staff, rookie head coach Liam Cohen. There's a 29-year-old first-time offensive coordinator Grant Udinski. He's a former Vikings assistant OC. New defensive coordinator. It's a whole new outlook. Should all be positives, but how positive in terms of like quantifying it? Because as far as ratings go, to end last season, I had Jacksonville rated 5.5 points below a league average team. Now, of course, that number was adjusted for injuries. So with Trevor Lawrence back, we could pretty much cut that number in half. But how much more do we adjust from there? Now, if you've watched any of these team previews, you've heard me talk about certain things throughout the course of an NFL season that's just related to luck and randomness. The Jags had the worst overall luck in the NFL last season. Putting injury luck and turnover luck aside for now, when you look at teams that just win or lose single score games, there's so many different things outside of on-field ability or performance that can impact the outcomes of those one-score games. You know, tipped ball turnovers, a fluke fumble, a bad call from the Zebras. The better team doesn't always win close games. Now, of course, there is something to be said for teams that always find a way to win those one-score games. It's often said those teams just know how to win. But a team who wins a lot of single-score games are often just extremely lucky, which means teams who lose a lot of one-score games are equally unlucky. The Jags went 3-10 in one-score games. That's 13 one-score games, which is crazy enough is tied with both the Rams and Colts. But 13 one-score games is the second most in the past decade. But to only win 23% of them is the worst close game win percentage of any team the last decade who played in 11 or more single score games in the past decade. Now, there's a metric I use to try and weigh this. It's one I've shown on every team preview for every team, but I haven't explained it because I was waiting for like a good example to do so. It's called fourth quarter win percentage over expectation, and I'll explain what this measures. The fourth quarter of the NFL games have a ton of variance. Teams who are trailing on the scoreboard get desperate, do whatever it takes to try and come back and win. Teams with the lead might not play the same way they have the first three quarters, and because of this, it makes the fourth quarter very unpredictable. So in theory, what a team does over the course of the first three quarters of a game is closer to the reality of the matchup. So like in summary, a fourth quarter win percentage over expectation is what we would expect a team's win percentage to be, removing the fourth quarter. It basically only credits a team for their performance in the majority of the game, removing the unpredictability of the fourth quarter. The blended version of this metric removes only the final 6 minutes of the fourth quarter. Based on this blended fourth quarter win probability, the Jags should have won 3 more games than they did. It's the second largest gap. I won't go over all the examples, but just to give you an idea of what this means. In the season opener versus Miami last season, Jags led by double digits late in the third quarter. Running back Travis Etienne fumbled going into the end zone. It was recovered by Miami. Miami eventually went on to kick a game-winning field goal at the buzzer. There's other heartbreaking losses as well, which include close losses to really good teams like Philly, Green Bay, Houston. Trevor Lawrence only started 10 games, but 5 of those 10 starts were against playoff teams, and the Jags lost 4 of those 5 by single-score games. So in other words, Trevor and this Jags team have built up a ton of positive regression. With this being like a make it or break it season for Lawrence, I'm expecting him to have a really good season. And he has the pass catchers to help him. They found a good one with wide receiver Brian Thomas Jr. coming off a rookie season with almost 1,300 yards receiving and 10 touchdowns. They add the unicorn in Travis Hunter. That alone would be a sick 1-2 combo, but this could end up being one of the best wide receiver groups in the league after the free agent pickup of Diami Brown. True deep ball threat and a legit number 3 option. I did bet Trevor Lawrence over 21.5 touchdown passes this season. He's had a carousel of coaches throughout his career, but I think this staff will have the most positive impact on his overall growth and development this year at least. Plus, I expect it to be like a pass-heavy, creative offense that could be playing from a negative game script too, which the defense will likely be to blame for that. It's now back-to-back terrible seasons for this Jags defense. They allowed 5.9 yards per play last season. Only Carolina was worse in yards per play allowed. But I actually had Jacksonville as the worst overall defense in the league last year when you adjust for strength of opponent. Jags finished 31st in EPA per play allowed and 26th in success rate, but those numbers look a lot worse while having played the overall easiest schedule of opposing offenses. They only managed to keep 3 offenses to an EPA below their season average. That was tied for fewest in the league. Nothing worse than a defense that's constantly getting burnt over the top. They were 30th defending explosive pass plays and dead last in yards after the catch on passes of 20-plus yards in the air. Zero pressure on the QBs allowed this to happen. Jags had the worst adjusted sack rate in the league. Now, on the surface, the Jags are expected to play a top 10 overall easiest strength of schedule. I have their average opponent combined rated almost a full point below a league average team, which is all good, but I worry about how their schedule is structured. The first 11 weeks, they play the 7th overall most difficult strength of schedule. 7 of their first 10 opponents rank inside my top 13 rated teams. Why this matters is what's the mindset of this organization and staff? If they're 3-6 at the halfway point, are they going to go all out and make a run, or are they going to start looking ahead to next year? If they can manage to keep it together, they'll have a real shot at making a run because they face the single easiest schedule of opponents from week 13 on. They will face 5 of the bottom 7 rated teams starting at week 13. Another thing as it relates to the schedule, the Jags have a real negative spot in their schedule that I have circled and have been back testing this spot the past 2 seasons. It's basically what is like the Las Vegas flu. Same idea as the Miami flu in the NBA. It's teams playing on back-to-back road games with the front end being in Las Vegas. So week 9, Jags go to Las Vegas and then to Houston the next week. Teams on the second game of a road back-to-back after playing in Las Vegas are just 1-11 against the spread, -12 and against the spread margin. This could be a play-on spot for Houston when you consider not just this spot, but with such a young coaching staff who might not have like full control over a young team in Las Vegas. A bunch of 20-year-olds in Vegas could be distractions for both players and coaches. Now, I have the Jags projected right around 7.5 wins. But there's several pathways for them to go over that number and even winning the division. The issue I have is this team is vulnerable in areas that I value the most when measuring teams, offensive line and defense. It's an unproven O-line. They were good last year, but the interior is all new. So it's important they hold up because this could be a real explosive offense in the passing game with this dynamic trio of wide receivers. The defense can't really get worse than last year. They only forced 9 turnovers. It's the first defense in the league since the 2018 Niners to force just single-digit turnovers in a season. If you believe in regression to the mean and everything equals out, then they should have much better turnover numbers this season. The back end of this defense immediately gets a spike up, not just with Travis Hunter and what he can bring, but they got a sneaky good pickup in veteran Jordan Lewis at the slot corner. He's been up and down throughout his career, but he graded out as one of the top 5 corners, or slot corners, I should say, last season. On paper, their secondary looks really good. Assuming Travis Hunter is shut down, you got Tyson Campbell opposite him, and now Jordan Lewis at nickel. I like that group a lot. But then again, we're expecting Travis Hunter to be both a shutdown corner and a playmaker on offense. He might only end up being one of those. If you watch to the end, thank you. I appreciate it. We're pulling up to the letter K next. That means we got the perennial Super Bowl contender, Kansas City Chiefs, so be on the lookout for that one. But until then, good luck with your bet.